Hey guys, my name is XTZ. How you guys doing? And in this video, we are now on part 4 of the campaign park tours. And in today's video, we are on Oregon, or as I should call this, the dinosaur creation facility from the lore I've been building across the past 4 parks. The idea is that the final park for the park tours will be California, which is this massive, much larger entertainment park, really. And so when we get there, which we'll get there eventually, but this is kind of like the backbone of how that park was created. But let's not get too much on the lore of this, and let's get into what we see here. So Oregon here is a nice place, I have to say. It's very nice. We've got this very ominous mountain here. We have many enclosures, and I do also say that this map was definitely built, I'd say, a lot earlier in my play time of the game. I'd say I've played this game for over 300 hours now, but I'd say this park was being built, I'd say, I don't know, many months ago now. So the fact that you can kind of see where my past flaws in how I built parks back then were more affected here. Let's waste no further ado and let's get to the beginning of the park. So we start off here at the arrival point, as we usually do, and we are started off with the restroom and the emergency center. I think that's very logical to say. We also have some hotels here, and we also have monorail points. We have one here and one here that will lead over to different parts of the park, or the facility, I should say. It's not more of a park, but more of a facility, but I need to not refer to that as much. The first enclosure that we will get to see here is actually the main attraction, if you will, of this facility, is the Acrocanthosaurus. Now there's two of them in here. There's one here, it's a bit greener, and the other one's redder, so you know. I think it's one of my least favorite large carnivores. There are definitely way better and more cooler looking carnivores and more iconic ones as well, but definitely one of my least favorites. Then we also have the Ceratosaurus, which is a very nice dinosaur, I have to admit. These horns are very intimidating, but also very beautiful at the same time, especially with the different types of what are they called? Patents, I think they're called. And you can get some really cool ones on that frill that they have as well. So we have another one here. They're all the same color, but I think I just have the green and blue and yellow. If we might move on to the next point of the park, which is, I think, probably my favorite enclosure. It is probably the biggest. I think it's the biggest enclosure, but also I think it's one of my favorites. And it's this very nice river I built across here, and it kind of splits into two. One that goes around here, then it ends around there, and also there, kind of. And I really do like the looks of this specific enclosure. I like the idea of having a lot of rocks here. There's almost island here, which I really liked, and it kind of sunk it in a bit. And also, if you get a good look inside, you can see what is going on. You can see there are some Pachyrhinosaurus, some Polacampus, and if we look over more on that side, I don't think you can see any here, but there also should be some, what are they called? A Margosaurus, that's the one. So we have some of these dinosaurs here. And so now I just actually want to bring my first tip into this park tour, is that if you're going to build a large enclosure, make it unique. And what I mean by that is, in this case, adding this massive river that kind of then splits into two with this little island in the middle. Like, if you're going to build a massive enclosure in a park, you want to make it as unique as possible, because or else it just kind of looks very boring otherwise, and to waste a lot of space on it. So every time you want to build a big ass enclosure, you do want to maybe spice it up a bit, you know, make it look real good. And yes, this was a long time ago, as you can tell. This is before when we didn't need to have ranger posts, but before the updates that came before this video, or before this video, used to have ranger posts everywhere because you didn't have the option. Dinosaur status checks that are off on this map. The iguanodons. Now these are very weird creatures for me personally. I like them. They're weird, but they're fun because look at the way they're built. They have very thick arms, which for most herbivores, they don't usually have, and especially a hadrosaur, which I guess this could be. I don't think this is a hadrosaur to per se. Oh, it is a hadrosaur, actually, never mind. It is a hadrosaur. But for most hadrosaurs, look at them. Look, bro. He's using its hands. It's using its hands. It has hands. This thing has thumbs. You know, it's one of the weirdest but kind of coolest things about it is it has thumbs, which is just such a weird thing for a dinosaur to have, because, you know, they usually have 4 fingers, but in this case, I think this one has 5 actually, right? Oh no, it has 4. Still, wait, I can't really tell, but I think it's either 4 or 5. But either way, they have like thumbs, which is kind of weird. But I really like them, and personally, my favorite color on them is this mangrove, I think, Amazon rainforest. I love it. It looks really cool. It has this it's like this almost, what is it, like a peachy brown kind of color underbelly, and then have this very nice blue cyan color on top. I really love that colorway personally. And then we also have the hatcheries. Oh, I made all the dinosaurs, and I didn't get rid of them. However, a build tip I would give for you guys is that if you do want to make your parks without the hatcheries, then you can just delete them after you put all the dinosaurs, and then kind of like build the stuff that you would have built in this kind of area, for example. But you know, it's up to you, to be honest. And once again, I was obsessed, and I still am, of just adding these little like little areas. But back then we had barely the amount of decorations that we had now. Like, for example, we didn't even have crates back then, containers. We didn't even have any of these. So, you know, I would love to be using these now, but back then we didn't have them. So, you know, that's why this is very old, as you can tell. And actually, moving on, but then we have very, very obscure hadrosaur, I think. This is hadrosaur, yeah. We have the Muttaburrasaurus, and these are actually from Australia. They're from Australia. Oh god, all the Australians in the comment section right now. But this is a nice Muttaburrasaurus enclosure here with this kind of ring-shaped lake here, because I have a little bit of an island in the middle with a couple of the forest brushed trees here. And moving on to the next enclosure, which is the Deinonychus enclosure. Now, I like the Deinonychus. They have these like very nice crests on them, and they're almost like a somewhat distant cousin to the Velociraptor and the Pyroraptor, which we saw in the last episode. If you didn't see that, feel free to click the card when you've watched the video. And then on this side, we have the Apatosaurus. Now, personally, another pro tip I would have here is just make the enclosure big enough for the appropriate dinosaur. In this case, the Apatosaurus is a big dinosaur. It is a sauropod. And so, you know, and especially only 2 being in here. Look at the size of this enclosure. It's pretty big. It's way bigger than even the Saracosaurus, the Iguanodons. I think it's slightly smaller than this enclosure, so they might be being comfortable in this enclosure. But when I was planning this, which I was not good at planning parks back then, I kind of did not put them in this enclosure. I said just put them in here. And I didn't want to like expand out this way, because then this would lead to other enclosures like the Majungasaurus enclosure. Now, another thing I wouldn't do now, but I did in this park, is have these massive areas just filled with the rock brush. Personally, this doesn't look very nice, especially it just doesn't fit right. I think if I had to look at real examples of how like in areas from like grass to rocks, rocky areas kind of what's the word I'm looking for, blend in, there you go, blend together. This is definitely not a good example of this. So I personally am not a huge fan of this, but again, Jurassic World Evolution 2, you definitely can learn how to do better in this. So another enclosure I have here is the Albertosaurus enclosure. Now, I once again wasn't very good at just blending things in, so you can just see how it just looks very rough here. I tried to add some rocks for decoration, but even the rocks look slightly out of place almost here. And the fact that I also added this whole area just filled with the paintbrush. And the only area that looks kind of good is this little lake here with the island with a bunch of rocks. Now, this looks pretty good, I think. And to learn from one's mistakes in the past is to just once again learn how to blend these areas a lot more. Like, for example, very simple thing I would have done here is just added a bit more shrubbery, and you can see once you add that shrubs, you can see now it kind of blends in more, you can see. And just simply doing that, now you've kind of almost blended it in a bit more, if you will. And actually, something I like to do is lightly, and I mean lightly, like pressing gently on the brush tool and just giving a little bit of like as if the grass is like growing from the sand, which is really cool. And doesn't really affect their needs, because look, it's still at 98%. So I definitely would say this is a better look of the enclosure now than it looked before. Then let's move on to the another area, which is the lagoons. Now, this is something we haven't seen in the last 2 parks now. The first time we saw this was in Arizona now. So, and don't worry, we will be back to lagoons in California. But this is another cool way look of the lagoons I used here in Oregon. So I have like 2 lagoons. I have this kind of slightly bigger one, and that's for the Tylosauruses, which I personally really like. They have this very thick, almost very scaly looking skin, and it looks very rough too, compared to, like, for example, I believe the Attenborosaurus. It's been a little while I've been on this map, but yeah, you can see this looks almost a black one here. Wow, that is this is really menacing. Yeah, whoa, that is really menacing though. All black with like gold linings. It's almost like the Indoraptor look. So this is the Amazon rainforest, surprisingly, with lithobates. This definitely does not represent the color that it shows up. I thought it would be a pink one, but nope. It's definitely another color. And then we have this one, which is a bit more normal here. This is like the one we see, I think, in the screen. So this is Limpopo River with lithobates once again. And so those are the aquatic reptiles that we have in our lagoons here. Another thing I like doing a lot in these parks is adding, customizing each of the stores and shops and restaurants. I love this one, for example, this purple and yellow. I personally love it. It especially just matches the logo as well here, which is kind of like the sign here. I like to usually match the signs. For example, the smoothies are just all green there. For the hot chocolate, I have this like brown and red look as well. And finally, the candy shop just being all pink. So, just stereotypic colors for those type of things in it. What else have we not gone to? We also have the aviary as well, which I've already built at this rate. I think now 3. All 3 of the other maps had aviaries at this rate, so you know how the usual go. I actually also decided to not use the main forest brush here. This is the one you'd usually use, but I actually used this one, which slightly gives less forest to the reptiles in here. But I think it looks really cool. I think it gives it more. It feels like there's more free air, or aire libre. Air libre. Oh, forgive my Spanish, if you will. And I think that is all for this park. As much of I think this is definitely a shorter video. I thought I'd mention the Chunkingosauruses here as well. Very small, but surprisingly need a lot of space. There's only 3 of them, and they just need a little bit more than that, surprisingly. But in this this facility, I call it, this is definitely, I would say, a learning curve. This was like, I think, my 2nd map or 3rd map I built on as well. So, there's definitely a lot more places to improve on, but I definitely, hopefully, given some tips onto improving your parks, and to also still have some other places I think I did well in, like this area here. The idea that this enclosure is kind of split in 2, but the fact that like natural land still has it. So, for example, this kind of lake here, or barely a lake, I say it's a river, and with like little island here in the middle. It's really cool as well. And then I think, well, that's tragic. Oh no, Cinemajunga. Oh, he died of old age. Okay. Well, that seems fair. Alright, off you go then. And finally, a little guest section there. And I think that's it for you guys. I think that covers it all. So guys, if you did enjoy this video, and if you even found it informative, feel free to leave a like. And if you did find it inspirational as well, then that is kind of the point of this video as well, just to give you some inspiration, and to maybe when you make your parks, don't always make them like theme parks. Maybe make them like facilities like I did here. But that is up to you guys, entirely up to you. So guys, if you did enjoy this video, feel free to subscribe. You know, help me out greatly. And if you want to see more content like this, I have the other 3 parts of this series out already in the playlist and on my channel as well. So guys, don't forget, take it easy and peace.